Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome back to Panda AudioBooks, your sanctuary for the pursuit of power and ancient mysteries. Today, we continue our journey through chapters 181 to 185 of Pursuit of the Truth. Su Ming has emerged from the fires of conflict changed, his heart has grown colder, and his gaze more piercing. As the echoes of his recent battles fade into the frozen air of the land of South Morning, he must now face the quiet, creeping dangers that come with being noticed by the powerful. The path is lonely, and the truth is expensive. Let us see what price Su Ming must pay next. Beginning Chapter 181. Chapter 181, Lei Chen. Up till this point, Su Ming had only been circulating his qi to counter the power sucking away his life force as he walked through the previous 6 sections of the chain. He did not use any other method to counter the force. The branding art was only used to destroy the stone pillar. At other times, Su Ming would keep it in himself. He did not wait for night to fall, did not activate the branding art, even fine control was rarely used. He only used the power of all the blood veins he had at that point in his body. After the few months of meditating in the isolation grounds of Han Mountain's ancestor, Su Ming had discovered something unique that existed only within those who attained completion for the blood solidification realm. If he did not want to, his blood veins would not appear on his skin. During the first 5 sections, Su Ming only used the power of around 700 blood veins. He only used the full power of all 979 blood veins when he was walking on the 6th section of the chain. Su Ming knew he had to use some of his hidden techniques when he faced the 7th section of the chain, or else, with just the power of the 979 blood veins, even if he managed to finish walking past the 7th section, the life force that was absorbed would affect his future plans. My body will recover quicker under the moonlight, the same goes for my blood circulation. It'll also produce more life force for me. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the moon in the sky. Most of it was concealed by the clouds. The moon was not round, but in Su Ming's eyes, the moon belonged solely to him. Moonlight shone on the ground without form. Some of the light was reflected off the small drops of rain, forming brilliant colors that could not be seen by others. As the light blended into Su Ming's body, he slowly rose up and walked towards the 7th section of the chain. He started on the 7th section. This section is incredibly dangerous. It's far too easy falling to your death here. I also heard that a lot of people failed at this section. It's a pity this person already wasted too much energy in the 6th section. The 7th section might be difficult for him. Moonlight scattered on the ground at night. It might not be as bright as daylight, but the people could still see Su Ming walking towards the 7th section of the chain. The crowd had already been watching for an entire morning, but they refused to go and rest even if it was night. Some of them even chose to go to places where there was no rain to sit down and watch as they talked amongst themselves. The old woman might have been tired, but she continued standing on the summit of Lake of Colors Mountain with Yang Luan supporting her as she watched. The 7th section, the section of doom, the old woman mumbled. Yang Luan was silent. She did not speak, but simply looked onward. At that moment, Su Ming did not realize that behind him, in a house on the 2nd layer of Han Mountain, was Han Fei Zi, who had arrived some time ago. She had been standing there for a long time already, looking at Su Ming's back, pondering about something. Everyone on the mountain belonging to Tranquil East tribe was watching. The tribe leader of Tranquil East hesitated for a moment before he looked towards the elder by his side. Can he walk through the 7th section? You should ask Han Kangzi about that, the elder of Tranquil East said languidly with a calm expression on his old and aged face. Han Kangzi was silent for a moment before she spoke in a gentle but firm tone. Yes. The silent crowd on Puqiang tribe also started discussing amongst themselves in low tones when Su Ming moved. Perhaps we don't even need to do anything anymore. Judging by his actions during the 6th section, he won't be able to complete the 7th section. Even if it's me, walking through the 6th section wouldn't have been so difficult. Looks like we overestimated this person. Best that he fails, or else we'll have to continue waiting here, and I'll have to waste my time. The sounds of discussion were low, but the words were cold, just like the Berserker art Puqiang practiced, they were filled with the implications of death. Only the elder of Puqiang tribe and the man who looked like a mountain of flesh did not speak along with the others. These two people's expressions were different. The elder of Puqiang tribe sat with narrowed eyes, not revealing his thoughts. As for the man who looked like a mountain of flesh, he was frowning. "What are your thoughts?" The elder of Puqiang tribe, the old man so dried up that he looked like a skeleton, cast a glance at the man beside him. There are 3 reasons as to why he destroyed the stone pillars. 1. As a warning. 2. To be intimidating. 3. To cut off his own retreat, putting himself in a position where he must finish challenging the chain. No one would do that, but he did. From these tiny details, we can tell that this person has a certain amount of confidence, but his confidence shouldn't be too great, or else he wouldn't need to cut off his own retreat. However, I think he can complete the 7th section. The man who looked like a mountain of flesh said slowly as a glint appeared in his eyes. The rain at night was weak, but there was still the occasional thunder rumbling. Sometimes, lightning would flash in the sky and slice through the air, making the land bright for an instant. At that moment, a bolt of lightning appeared, and in the short moment when the land was lit up, the crowd saw Su Ming taking his first step towards the 7th section of the chain from the 6th stone pillar. Yet the moment he took his first step, Su Ming lurched forward. The others could not see it, but at that moment, the second his foot landed, Su Ming saw a person suddenly appear on the 7th section of the chain. This person's face was obscured, and it looked like it was just an apparition. It floated before Su Ming and over the chain of Han Mountain, looking at him silently. Su Ming, a faint voice floated towards him and traveled into Su Ming's ears, causing his heart, which was uninfluenced by virtually everything, to tremble the instant he heard the voice. Lei Chen. Su Ming immediately recognized the owner of the voice. The moment he called out the name, the apparition no longer remained obscured, but instantly turned clear. Very soon, a person with an alien appearance, but with a pair of familiar eyes appeared before Su Ming. There was a pained look on the person's face. He stood there with a baffled expression. There were numerous wounds on his body, and Su Ming could see some black insects crawling in those wounds. That person looked incredibly old, and his right eye was blind. At that moment, that eye let out a fierce light, but his left eye was staring at Su Ming dumbly, with disbelief. Su Ming, is that really you? This is, the person trembled and the pained look on his face grew worse. It was as if the pain he suffered at that moment was unbearable. Su Ming even saw a circular mark at the center of his brows. That mark was completely black. There was even black mist coming out from it, as if the mark had penetrated through his entire skull. This is impossible, it's not you. You're not you. Who are you? The person suddenly roared and glared at Su Ming. He took a huge step forward and charged towards Su Ming. A strong presence suddenly erupted forth from Lei Chen's body. When that presence appeared, Su Ming felt as if everything around him had frozen up. A mighty pressure fused with the aura of death pressed on him like a gigantic hand, causing his body to tremble. Lei Chen, Su Ming mumbled. His heart pounded and raced against his chest. He absolutely did not expect that something like this would appear on the 7th section of the chain. This is fake. I'm challenging the chains of Han Mountain. This is just an illusion formed in my heart. Su Ming's mind was not muddled. It was the opposite. His mind was incredibly clear, but it was this lucidity that made his heart tremble. You! Who are you? Lei Chen growled ferociously. He was still closing in on Su Ming. A vicious presence crashed into Su Ming's body when Lei Chen was not even 100 feet away from him. A killing intent fueled by madness also appeared in Lei Chen's right eye. Lei Chen, I'm Su Ming. Su Ming was clear-headed, but the more lucid he was, the more terrified he became. He was not afraid of Lei Chen, nor of the heavens and earth. It was a fear that he could not describe. I am Su Ming, I am Su Ming, he mumbled. He looked at Lei Chen closing in on him viciously. He clenched his right hand and hurled his fist forward, but stopped abruptly when his fist was 3 inches away from his face. He stopped because Su Ming uttered one sentence. You once asked whether we would change. Lei Chen trembled. His bloodshot eyes were filled with viciousness and the remnants of disbelief. There was even terror as he looked at Su Ming dumbly. That's impossible. I buried you with my own hands. Is this an illusion? Is this another one of those illusions that were part of my training? Lei Chen laughed brokenly and retracted his right fist before punching his own chest. A muffled boom reverberated through the air, and Lei Chen's body dissipated instantly, turning into an indistinct blur once again that gradually disappeared from Su Ming's eyes. Su Ming's breathing quickened. He had not experienced such a change when he had walked through the 6 sections of the chains of Han Mountain. Neither did he act this way under Puqiang's delicate words. Yet now, he could barely control his own breathing. He panted harshly. Is this an illusion or is it the truth? Is this my illusion or Lei Chen's illusion? Is this my reality or Lei Chen's reality? Lei Chen's appearance has changed a lot, and he has become so powerful. Is this my imagination? Su Ming trembled, as if he could not wake up from his nightmare. At that moment, a shocking uproar broke out in Han Mountain City. That commotion made all the people sitting down stand up once again. Lake of Colors tribe, Tranquillise tribe, and even Puqiang tribe were taken aback. All of them clearly saw Su Ming walking forward on the 7th section of the chain in the night. Yet his movements were completely different from before. It was as if he had forgotten that this was the chains of Han Mountain, and he had forgotten that he was walking on a chain, not a smooth pavement. At that moment, Su Ming looked as if he had lost his soul and his mind before these people's eyes. Even if he was moving, he looked like a walking corpse. There was even once where he almost missed his footing. This was definitely not something a person with a clear mind would do. This again. I remember hearing from someone before that every challenger walking on the 7th section would become like this. Just what secret lies in the 7th section? It's over. He didn't slip when he almost missed his footing just now because the wind was small and the chain wasn't swaying too hard. Now the wind is here. The discussions that rose like tidal waves stopped instantaneously due to the sudden appearance of the fierce wind. As the wind moaned in the air, the 7th section of the chain started swaying furiously, and the speed at which it swung also increased. At that moment, a bolt of lightning sliced through the air, causing the discussions that had halted to rise once again in a volume louder than before. Because at the moment the bolt of lightning lit up the world, they saw clearly. On the chain, Su Ming lifted his right foot stiffly, and slipped. Chapter 182, Failure. He failed. If you fail at the 7th section, it's the same as dying. He definitely doesn't have any art that can keep him alive. This 7th section, the 7th section. I can't believe it's so dangerous. I don't even know why he became like this. This shouldn't have happened by how he performed at the 6th section. The sounds of discussing burst forth. Almost everyone stood up. Nan Tian and the others took a deep breath in disbelief. The 7th section might be difficult, but he's the person who could fight for the ancient bell with Sir Sai Ma, and he failed, just like that. I knew that the 7th section is mysterious, but I don't know the details. Just what did this person go through in the 7th section? The discussions were endless. Commotions broke out everywhere. Under everyone's eyes, Su Ming's foot missed the chain of Han Mountain and he fell. His body toppled to the side, and he fell downwards. The sight stirred up even stronger shock and cries of surprise. Nan Tian and the other 3 people did not hesitate one bit. They all flew up to look from mid-air. In the house on the 2nd layer of Han Mountain City, Han Feizi's face turned pale under the veil. She did not move, but simply stood as she looked into the distance with a dumbfounded expression. It doesn't matter whether he is Mo Su. If he fails at the 7th section, then no one can save him. Han Feizi lowered her head and closed her eyes. At the same time on Lake of Colors Mountain, the old woman widened her eyes. Yang Luan was also stunned by her side. Her face was filled with disbelief. This had happened too suddenly, catching them completely off guard. This is... Yang Luan was speechless and completely stunned. It's a pity. The old woman sighed lightly. She turned around and was about to leave the place. The entire day of watching the challenge with close attention had made her extremely tired, yet when she was about to leave, she saw Han Mountain City with the corner of her eyes and was suddenly stunned. The spot that she saw was where Han Mountain Bell was located. The bell did not experience any changes and continued lying silently in the corner. When Su Ming's foot landed on thin air and his body fell from the 7th section, besides Lake of Colors Mountain, Tranquil East Mountain also experienced a shocking change. For the first time, the elder of Tranquil East stood up and took a few brisk steps to the edge of the mountain to look. He took a deep breath and his eyes sparkled with shock concealed within. With his power, even if he can't make it through the 7th section, he shouldn't have failed like that. This is someone who's incredibly similar to Sima Xin. How could he just die like that? Fang Shen's face was pale. From the moment he recognized Mo Su to be the challenger of the chains of Han Mountain, he had been in a constant state of nervousness. That nervousness did not stem from his worry about Su Ming's well-being, but his son's injuries. When he saw Su Ming slip and fall from the chain, Fang Shen's body swayed and he staggered a few steps backwards. He knew that Mo Su was dead. No one could survive if they fell from the 7th section of the chain. Han Kangzi bit her bottom lip, and a baffled look appeared in her eyes. However, almost at the same instant that bafflement appeared, it turned into resolution. He won't die. At that very moment, due to Su Ming's surprising fall, even the man who looked like a mountain of flesh stood up on Puqiang Mountain. All on the mountain took a few instinctive steps forward, including the elder of Puqiang tribe. They came to the edge of the mountain and looked down. They could still see Su Ming's body falling downward swiftly, and he was soon swallowed by darkness, disappearing without a trace. HMH, didn't I say it before? This person will definitely die. The 7th section of the chain is not so easy. He was just walking to his own death. It's a pity. He sounded the bell 20-odd times, but he still died on the 7th section of the chain, and no one can save him. The elder of Puqiang tribe narrowed his eyes and a chilling glint appeared in his eyes. He no longer looked at the canyons, but lifted his head and spoke with a surly tone. Send someone down and get his corpse back. Someone behind him immediately obeyed and quickly walked down the stairs to arrange for the task to be done. A disbelieving look appeared on the man who looked like a mountain of flesh. He looked at the canyons and then at the 7th section of the chain. A respectful look appeared in his eyes. Chains of Han Mountain. The crowd in Han Mountain City still had not recovered from the shock after witnessing the sudden scene. Even in the midst of all the buzzing discussions and commotion, most of their gazes would still turn back towards the 7th section of the chain in the moonlight. The chains of Han Mountain become incredibly dangerous starting from the 7th section. If even such a prodigy failed, then how can we even challenge it? Only if you walk up to the 9th section are you qualified to enter Freezing Sky Clan, but that's just a qualification. But if you're from one of the 3 tribes, then you won't need to walk though all 9 sections of the chain, just like how Han Kangzi did in the past. Time trickled by slowly, and the people in Han Mountain City gradually accepted the reality. Some of them felt that it was a pity, some of them were mocking him, some of them felt pleased with what had happened, and some were sighing deeply. Yet no matter what, everything had ended. The person who made the bell chime 20-odd times had become something in the past. Another person failed the challenge of the chains of Han Mountain once again. Another innocent soul died because of them. Let's go. It has ended. Let's go back to meditate and increase our blood veins. The chains of Han Mountain are not something we can challenge. It's a pity. We don't even know what that person's name was. We didn't even manage to see his face. Let's hope Puqiang can find his corpse. The topic of people's discussions gradually started to move away from what had happened over the day, and they went back to their own houses with deep sighs. In the sky, Ku Ju Sai and the other 3 people were all silent. Besides Xian Lun, who was laughing coldly in a gleeful manner in his heart, the other 3 had mixed feelings in their hearts as they looked at the chains of Han Mountain. They began to feel helpless as they were reminded of the approaching date of Freezing Sky Clan coming to take in disciples. Strong transcended berserkers like themselves could go back to their own tribes and enjoy life if they were satisfied and were willing to stop with their training. That was their best choice. However, they were not satisfied, even though they had already reached the transcendence realm. I'll go back first. Nan Qian sighed and wrapped his fist in his palm towards the other 3 people before he turned into a long arc and went back to the 2nd layer. Ku Ju Sai and Leng Ying wrapped their fists in their palms too and saluted each other in silence before they left. Only Xian Lun remained standing in midair with a faint smile on his lips. You overestimated yourself and challenged the chains of Han Mountain. Mo Su, You brought about your own death. Xian Lun laughed coldly. He moved, but not back to his own domain. He flew instead to Puqiang Mountain. He wanted to see whether Mo Su's face could be seen if he was brought back. If he even had a corpse left, that is. He already had a vague guess in his heart and wanted to prove himself right. In the house on the second layer of Han Mountain City, Han Fei Zi's eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes and took a step forward silently. White clouds manifested under her feet and lifted her up to bring her back to Lake of Colors Mountain. She was not curious about how the dead failure looked like, neither was she curious about his identity, because he was dead. To her, it no longer mattered whether this person was Mo Su or not. If he's Mo Su, then I'll have to look for another companion. Such a pity. Han Fei Zi sighed and flew into the distance on the white cloud. Yet at that moment, when Tranquil East Mountain fell into silence, Puqiang Mountain was celebrating Mo Su's misfortune and some even went to search for his corpse. Suddenly, in the dispersing crowd in Han Mountain City, a dense boy standing beside an old man took a look at the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th stone pillars that were still underneath the chain of Han Mountain connecting to Puqiang Mountain with uncertainty and bewilderment. Then he whispered something into the old man's ear. The old man was momentarily stunned, then he quickly lifted his head to look at the chain. Everyone. The more he looked, the brighter the old man's eyes became. However, he was still a little skeptical. After a moment of hesitation, he called out to the people around him in a low voice. Yet no one took note of his words. Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed in the sky. The rain became heavier. The rain during the day might have been heavy, but people were still standing outside to watch the chains of Han Mountain. Yet now, when the rain became just slightly heavier, these people were already walking briskly back to their houses. Everyone. There. The pillars supporting the chain are still there, the old man yelled out. His voice did not travel too far. Most of the people who heard it ignored him at first, but very soon, they jolted, then whipped their heads back to look. The stone pillars were still standing tall underneath the chain connecting to Puqiang Mountain. The stone pillars are still there. Once anyone fails in challenging the chains of Han Mountain, the stone pillars will all sink down instantly. This isn't something the three tribes can control. This is the mystery of the chains of Han Mountain. How? How could they still be there? Could it be? The old man and the boy were not the only ones who noticed it. People gradually started noticing this sight in other areas within Han Mountain City. Very soon, discussions and commotions broke out once again. After a while, most of the people who heard the sound stopped and turned to look. They're right. The stone pillars haven't sunk. Could it be? He's not dead yet. Cries of surprise reverberated through the air and eventually fused together. People's voices were like a windstorm blowing within Han Mountain City, causing all those who had originally wanted to go back to their houses to be stunned when they heard the words, and they immediately returned. As they listened to the cries of surprise around them and saw the stone pillars of Han Mountain standing tall before them, disbelief appeared on their faces. Is he really not dead? Nan Qian came to an abrupt pause in midair and turned around. Shock appeared on his face. He was not the only one. Leng Ying and Ku Ju Sai similarly stopped in midair and looked towards the stone pillars. Xian Lun was the same. He had been laughing coldly and was just about to go to Puqiang tribe when he heard the cries of surprise from Han Mountain City. A jolt crawled down his body and he immediately turned around to look. That's impossible. Han Mountain City was not the only one in an uproar at that moment. The expressions of the elder, the man who looked like a mountain of flesh, and even all the other people behind them on Puqiang Mountain all changed drastically. They also noticed this. The cloud underneath Han Fei Zi's feet stopped momentarily. As she stood on the white cloud, she turned her head back and focused her gaze at the canyons underneath the chains of Han Mountain. He's still alive. He's still alive? The challenge for the chains of Han Mountain hasn't ended. The elder of Tranquil East tribe took in a sharp breath on Tranquil East Mountain. A rare look of disbelief appeared on his aged face. Han Kangzi stood not far in the distance. A hint of red finally appeared on her pale face. Chapter 183. Awaken. The old woman's dark eyes sparkled as she stood on Lake of Colors Mountain. She looked at Han Mountain Bell, then at the stone pillars everyone was looking at while crying out in surprise. By the old woman's side, Yang Wan was also in a state of disbelief when the same thought that was going through everyone's head appeared in her mind. Could it be, is he really not dead? Why else would the stone pillars not sink? The old woman was silent. She stared at the stone pillars and frowned. This matter threw her into a rare state of bafflement. Due to the dark clouds, moonlight could not fall completely to the ground. While it may not be so dark that people could not even see their own hands if they stretched them out in front of their eyes, but it was still rather dark, and they could only barely see the chain of Han Mountain swaying in the wind. The stone pillars continued standing tall underneath the pillars without any signs of sinking. The amount of labored breathing gradually increased in Han Mountain City. All of the watchers, including the people who originally wanted to leave, were all looking at the chain with full attention. An indescribable feeling, like the calm before a storm, fell on the entire Han Mountain. All of them were waiting for the person who might appear in their sights under the swaying chain. Su Ming did not know that there were so many people waiting for him to appear. He did not even know that he slipped off the chain. Contrary to what the crowd saw, Su Ming was not in a muddled state. His mind was very clear, but what he saw was completely different from what the crowd saw. What he saw was still the swaying chain of Han Mountain in the wind. What he saw was still him with one foot on the 7th section of the chain. He saw Lei Chen's apparition breaking apart before him. That devastated laughter made his heart tremble. He could not tell whether it was his own illusion or whether it was Lei Chen's illusion. He did not even know whether this was real or fake. Even if he knew that everything might be a product of his own mind, Lei Chen's current appearance and his words made an uncontrollable sharp pain spike through his entire body. He buried me with his own hands, Su Ming mumbled. He fell silent for a long time, for a very long time. He did not hear the thunder in the sky, did not hear the wind whistling, did not see the lightning. He looked at the chain. Suddenly, the chain was no longer horizontal in his sight, but had turned vertical. The world, too, had turned upside down. He lifted his foot silently and moved forward. Yet when he felt that he had taken 10 steps forward, mist instantly gathered before him once again. A shudder ran through his body. The mist quickly gathered and eventually turned into the figure of a man. This person did not have his right arm. He wore a green robe and was standing there with a baffled expression, as if he did not know why he had appeared there. He had a handsome face, and after a short moment, the bafflement in his eyes was replaced by a piercing glint that was akin to light reflecting off a sword. Yet this piercing glint turned into a stunned expression when he saw Su Ming, which was quickly followed by a frown. His face became dark. Bei Ling, Su Ming mumbled and stared dumbly at the man who had obviously aged before him. An indescribable feeling rose within his heart. Who are you? Why did you lead my consciousness here? Your presence, have we met before? Bei Ling hesitated for a moment. The moment he saw this person, an incredibly familiar feeling rose within him. It felt as if it was something that was carved into his bones, as if it was a feeling that existed from a long time ago. Su Ming was silent for a time. After a long while, he said softly, "I'm Su Ming." The moment he heard Su Ming's name, Bei Ling trembled. He glared at him, with an expression that spoke of disbelief and that he could not imagine this happening. It was as if these two words left behind an impression that was difficult to erase within him. Bei Ling was silent. Su Ming did not speak either. He could not tell whether this was real or fake. Bewilderment filled every corner of his body. Neither knew how much time had passed when Bei Ling suddenly laughed coldly. He cast a deep look at Su Ming and his eyes became cold. Since when did the great tribe of Miao Man toy with Berserker illusionary arts? And you don't even try forming the illusions of those around me, but chose to form Su Ming's illusion, who had already died. I don't care which Miao Man ancestor you are, but you shouldn't have created Su Ming's illusion. Su Ming is a member of my tribe. He is the hero of Dark Mountain. You have no right to turn into him. Bei Ling's last words were practically shouted out. Anger and sadness filled his face, as if an old scar that had been sealed off was forcefully ripped open, which caused Bei Ling to lift up his left hand abruptly, and immediately, the apparition of a giant bow appeared behind him. That bow exuded a presence that could destroy heaven and earth. The moment it appeared, It was drawn out as if an invisible person was drawing it. Wisps of black mist appeared from within Bei Ling's body and gathered around him, turning into a black mist arrow. The moment the bow was drawn out, the arrow shot out from the bow with a buzzing sound and charged straight at Su Ming. Bei Ling, big brother, Su Ming mumbled. His mind was very clear. He knew that all of this was fake, but even if he knew that it was fake, he still wanted to see whether after Bei Ling, the elder would appear, and whether the girl whom he failed to keep his promise with her would appear. The charging arrow came to an abrupt halt before Su Ming. It was just like with Lei Chen's punch. It stopped. What did you just say? The pain on Bei Ling's face grew stronger. He looked at Su Ming, and after a long while, he closed his eyes. Thank you for letting me see Su Ming once again. I don't care why you chose to cast this illusion, but today, I thank you. After a while, Bei Ling opened his eyes. A calm look settled on his face. There was a gentle look in his eyes as he looked at Su Ming, as if he was looking at his own younger brother. Su Ming, take care. Bei Ling turned around. There were tears in his eyes. He slowly walked into the distance, looking as if he was about to disappear from the world. Big brother Bei Ling, is Chen Xin all right? At that moment, Su Ming forgot to remind himself that all of this was fake. He looked at Bei Ling walking away and instinctively opened his mouth to ask. Bei Ling shuddered and stopped. He turned around and his breathing became rapid as he stared at Su Ming. Bafflement and uncertainty appeared on his face. Su Ming looked at Bei Ling, then quickly put his right hand into his bosom. When he took his hand out, there was a black shard in his palm. That shard was the piece he took when Dark Mountain's statue of the god of Berserkers broke. Even if all of this is fake, even if none of this is real, even so it doesn't matter. Su Ming lifted his head and placed the shard in his hand for Bei Ling to see. The moment he saw the shard, Bei Ling's body trembled furiously. Shock appeared on his face and he stared at Su Ming dumbly. Are you really Su Ming? I am, Su Ming said bitterly. Bei Ling suddenly started laughing loudly. That laughter was filled with misery and a pain that Su Ming did not understand. If you are Su Ming, why didn't you come back? Do you know how long we waited for you? Do you know just how long we waited for you? Su Ming, you're not him. There was sorrow on Bei Ling's face. He turned around and gradually walked into the distance as he laughed miserably, disappearing from the chains of Han Mountain, from Su Ming's sight. Su Ming stood there right up until Bei Ling's body disappeared. Tears fell from the corners of his eyes. It had been a long time since he cried. At that moment, tears fell down his cheeks and on the chain, then into the canyons, disappearing without a trace. Chains of Han Mountain. Just what sort of chains are you? Why did this scene appear? Are you trying to tell me something? Su Ming closed his eyes and only opened them after a long while before silently starting to walk forward again. Walking through the chain was no longer important. Su Ming did not want to think whether it was real or fake any longer. He did not even care whether it was dangerous. He just wanted to see who he would see. As he continued walking forward, he continued onward. When he was halfway through the 7th section of the chain, he saw Wu La, the head of the guards, Shan Hen. Eventually, the back of an old person with white hair appeared in the mist before him. Elder Su Ming's heart clenched in pain. He was just about to see the old man clearly when he turned around, his vision suddenly blurring and a sword whistle echoing in his head. At the same time, a voice filled with anxiety repeatedly crashed into his mind. This voice belonged to He Feng, who was shocked awake when he sensed death looming over him. Master! Master! Wake up! Master! If you don't wake up, then we'll die. Damn you! Curse you! Why aren't you awake yet? If you want to die, at least release me first. He Feng was in a state of frenzy as he yelled in a panic in his head. Su Ming's qi was not circulating at all. It was as if his qi was suppressed, but the small virescent sword hidden within the path of blood that had been opened inside him was letting out a buzzing sound that only he could hear. That buzzing sound was becoming increasingly stronger and was stimulating Su Ming's mind, causing him to wake up as he was dangerously falling. The moment he woke up, a sense of death looming over him instantly rushed into his heart and broke through everything in sight, as if the world before him shattered into pieces. Once it disappeared, what appeared before Su Ming was endless darkness and his rapidly falling body. He became truly awake. The moment he woke up, Su Ming suddenly understood. It did not matter whether what he saw was real or fake. In truth, these were all the lingering sights from the illusions that appeared when he was walking on the 7th section of the chain, which all remained in his head as he fell. Have I failed? But I haven't seen the elder. Su Ming was falling rapidly. The canyon was very deep. He could feel the wind around him roaring as his body rapidly closed in on the pit below. Feng's panicked and terrified screams, along with the sword whistles, reverberated in his head like thunder. No wonder the people who challenge the chains rarely survive. If they fail, the chains of Han Mountain are really strange. They can suppress your qi and cause it to not circulate, and it can also make people lose consciousness. The only outcome is death. It's very hard for others to save the challengers. Feng survived in the past not just due to Han Feizi's preparations, but also because of his luck. Su Ming became calm as his body continued falling. He might not know just how far the ground was, but the approaching impact and the increasingly stronger sense of death was enough to tell him that death was closing in on him rapidly. Chapter 184. Elder, please come out. Master, you're finally awake. There was a hint of bitterness in Feng's voice. He already did not know how to express himself. He was shocked awake when he sensed death looming dangerously over him and immediately discovered that something was wrong with Su Ming. It was as if he had lost his soul, and his body was falling rapidly. Before long, he would crash and his body would turn to smithereens. Su Ming was unaware of his surroundings, so it was only natural that he did not know fear, but Feng was conscious. He could only watch Su Ming's body fall, watch himself dying together with Su Ming, and he could do nothing about it. He could not control Su Ming's body, and neither could he leave it. The power outside that was suppressing his qi would also bring about destructive harm to him. He was truly afraid. This sort of torture where he had to walk to his own death and could do nothing about it made him mad. He called out to Su Ming in panic, had even started cursing him without bothering to sugarcoat his words by the end when he sank into despair. Yet when he saw that Su Ming was awake, Feng suddenly became afraid again. That fear was no longer due to possibility of death, but due to the possibility of Su Ming having heard his words just now. If he did, then he might be in serious trouble. Mars Master, what did you hear just now? I was just worried about your safety. Feng quickly explained himself cautiously, worried that Su Ming would punish him because of that. Su Ming ignored Feng. His body was falling rapidly. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind, and eventually, a faint glint appeared in his eyes. Immediately, the souls of wings of moon spread out from within his body. Yet the moment they came out, a mighty pressure fell upon him instantly, trapping the souls of wings of the moon within his body, causing them to be unable to come out. I can't circulate my qi, and the souls of wings of the moon can't leave my body either. This is the only way now. Su Ming activated the branding art in his mind, and a green light flashed at the center of his brows before the small virescent sword charged out. The small sword was also not faring very well under the pressure of the place when it appeared. It swayed as if it could not bear the pressure, but when Su Ming gathered all the power of the branding art on the sword, it immediately stabilized, and with a flash, it dashed underneath Su Ming's feet to support him, allowing him to step on the blade. Due to the force of the fall, the moment his feet landed on the blade, Su Ming felt as if he was crushed. The small sword only managed to dissipate some of the force, the rest was all gathered in his body. Banging sounds reverberated within him, and Su Ming's face immediately turned pale. He coughed out a mouthful of blood, and the small sword abruptly sank hundreds of feet before it slowly came to a halt. Su Ming was gasping as he stood on the small sword. He lifted his head swiftly and looked at the dark sky above him. He saw lighting flashing in the sky. During the short instants when the world was bright, he saw the faint and indistinct chain swaying above him. I haven't finished challenging the chain. Su Ming mumbled. He was wearing a black robe, but the hood had flown off when he was falling, so he lifted it back up to cover his head once more. He then loosened the robes around his feet so that he could hide what was lifting him up. The small virescent sword slowly rose up under his will, supporting his body from the depths of the canyons as he gradually floated upwards. He returned. Within Han Mountain City, as time trickled by and innumerable thunders rumbled in the sky, occasionally, lightning would slice through the air and light up the area. It also illuminated the chain that was under the scrutiny of everyone in Han Mountain City. Similarly, the faces of the crowd standing in the city waiting were also illuminated when lightning flashed in the sky. No one felt impatient. All of them knew clearly in their hearts that there was only one explanation to the strange sight of the stone pillars not sinking. The challenge of the chains of Han Mountain had not ended. The challenger did not fail. However, they might know the reason behind it, but the people could not help but be skeptical due to everything that had happened that day. Is he really not dead? It's been a long time since then. If he's really not dead, then why hasn't he appeared? Puqiang tribe should have sent someone to look for his corpse. I wonder how they fared. The low sounds of discussions broke the silence. It had been too long. Even if the people knew the reason as to why the stone pillars had not sunk, their uncertainty grew stronger as time passed by. The elder of Tranquil East had a grave expression on his face as he stood at the edge of Tranquil East Mountain. He kept his gaze fixed on the canyon. Behind him, Fang Shun and Han Kangzi, who stood a little further away, were doing the same. This has never happened before. Is he really not dead? Soon, an hour passed by. An hour usually passed by quickly for people, but now, to these people, this hour seemed to be passing by so slowly it was as if time had been lengthened by several fold. On Puqiang Mountain, the thin and dried-up elder sucked in a deep breath, and the grave expression on his face gradually relaxed. It has been over an hour. Perhaps something is wrong with the chains of Han Mountain, and not because the person hasn't died. What do you think? The elder of Puqiang tribe's final sentence was directed towards the man who looked like a mountain of flesh and stood by his side. The man hesitated for a moment, looked at the sky, then looked at the canyons before he spoke slowly. It has been quite some time. There's a high chance that this person is dead. The tribe members who went down to look should have also. He did not manage to finish speaking. Suddenly, his body lurched forward and he stared fixedly at the canyons. He saw it. He was not the only one. Beside him, the expression of Puqiang tribe's elder also changed. It was as if there was anger roaring with the might of a windstorm and giant waves within his body, ready to erupt forth at any moment as he stared into the canyons. He saw it. Besides the two of them, the other people on Puqiang Mountain also trembled and looked into the canyons. Their expressions changed drastically because of what they saw. They saw it. Lightning flashed in the sky at that moment, and during the instant the light from the bolt of lightning illuminated the world, a person in black robes could be seen rising slowly from within Han Mountain's canyons. Cries of surprise rose from Han Mountain. The elder of Tranquil East tribe took a deep breath and a piercing glint appeared in his eyes as he stared into the canyons with a look of amazement. He too saw it. Fang Shun and Han Kangzi, who were standing by his side, had different expressions on their faces. Fang Shun was shocked, while Han Kangzi let out a huge sigh of relief. They also saw it. On Lake of Colors tribe, the old woman instinctively clenched and loosened her right hand before she clenched it again. This repeated several times, but her expression remained calm. It was as if even if she saw that shocking scene in the canyons, her emotions would not surge too much. By her side, Yang Luan was stunned for a moment when she saw what was happening in the canyons. Then a brilliant light appeared in her eyes. She was about to say something when she suddenly noticed the old woman's right hand, and her heart skipped a beat. Everyone said that her power was stronger than the elders. This was true, but only Yang Luan herself knew the might of Lake of Colors elder. She also knew that the elder had a habit. When she was uncertain about something, her right hand would clench and unclench multiple times, just like now. Elder, what are you hesitating about? Yang Luan did not quite understand what was going on. Right now, this had nothing to do with Lake of Colors tribe, so why would there be anything that would make the elder so uncertain? Besides the mountains that belonged to the three tribes, the entire crowd in Han Mountain City that was watching the chain also saw what was happening in the canyons. Once they saw it, the crowd burst into a shocked uproar. The waves of sounds rose and fell with such a volume that it seemed to be able to surpass the thunder rumbling in the sky. He really hasn't died. It's him. He's out. Just what is his level of cultivation? He actually managed to come out from the canyons. No one has ever managed to stay alive after falling for such a long time. This person he really hasn't died, and he even came out from the canyons. Nan Qian took a deep breath and admiration appeared for the first time in his eyes. He looked at the canyons and mumbled under his breath. Leng Ying and Ku Jusai's expressions also changed once they saw what was happening in the canyons. Just like Nan Qian, they came to admire this man. Powerful berserkers should be respected, and the person who walked out of the canyons especially so. Han Fei Zi stood on the white cloud in midair. The veil covered the smile that appeared on her lips. Her eyes also became much brighter compared to before. Only Shen Lun's face turned so dark his expression was like ice. He clenched his fists tightly and lowered his head, hiding the jealousy and killing intent in his eyes. Su Ming stood on the small virescent sword that was hidden by his robes and slowly rose from the canyon. He appeared in the air and before the people's eyes. After what happened, he could be said to truly be the center of everyone's attention. His every action moved the people's hearts. Even the disdain held by some when they previously watched him was gone like the wind. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he crawled out from death's door. To be able to walk out from the canyons after falling was a feat that would surely make him famous in Han Mountain. He was bound to be remembered by people even after centuries had gone by, and this incident was bound to be talked about by the people who watched what had happened on this day every time whenever someone else challenged the chains of Han Mountain in the future. It was also destined that this time, Su Ming's challenge would stun the entire Han Mountain because nothing like this had ever happened before, allowing him to achieve his goal of shocking these people. He floated up, and when Su Ming's body was at the same level as the seventh section of the chain, an even stronger outcry and uproar stirred up within Han Mountain City. Even Su Ming could hear the sounds reverberating in the city. Does he still want to continue? Just how does he look like? What's his name? He's definitely going to be chosen by Freezing Sky Clan as a disciple. Even if he doesn't continue, there's still a high chance that Freezing Sky Clan will take him in. Su Ming stood beside the seventh section of the chain amidst the buzzing sounds of discussions. He did not look at the silent Puqiang Mountain, which was connected to the chain, but lifted his foot and stepped on the chain instead. The instant he stepped on the same chain the second time, the volume of the discussions in Han Mountain City reached their peak. The people of the three tribes also looked on anxiously from their mountains. At the same time Su Ming stepped on the chain, the small virescent sword disappeared without a trace under his feet. Su Ming stood on the seventh section of the chain and welcomed the mountain breeze. He let out a deep breath. Let's continue, chains of Han Mountain, he mumbled. He lifted his right foot and took a step forward on the chain. As he moved, the 6-stone pillar behind him shattered and turned into a countless debris that fell into the canyons. Even now, Su Ming had not forgotten what Puqiang tribe had asked of him. Elder, please come out. Su Ming moved forward. His footsteps were not quick. He didn't want to walk through this section too quickly. Chapter 185. Refuse. After what had happened at daytime and how he had crawled back to life from death, every single one of Su Ming's actions now tugged at the heartstrings of many who were watching. They watched Su Ming walking on the seventh section of the chain. They looked at the person basked in moonlight, and for some unknown reason, the person in the air seemed to let out a lonely presence. This feeling was very faint, and since everyone's perception was different, what they saw and felt was also slightly different. Elder, please come out. Su Ming slowly walked forward. He longed and yearned to see the elder, even if it was just a glance. Before him was Puqiang Mountain, which laid behind the 8th and 9th sections of the chain. After being silent for a moment, the delicate voice that the people had heard before traveled forth. Sir, you've already failed, why do you persist? Even if you continue on, you've still failed. Your challenge has ended. The delicate voice spoke slowly, and it traveled all over the region. The instant this voice reached them, the people in Han Mountain City immediately fell silent. Even Nan Qian and the others frowned, but once Nan Qian looked at Puqiang Mountain, he chose not to speak. Su Ming ignored them and continued walking forward silently on the chain. His eyes fell on the end of the 7th section of the chain, and a hint of longing that was hidden deep within his eyes appeared. Elder, elder. He mumbled. He did not stop. At that moment, his heart jumped. He saw what other people could not see. The black mist on the chain was gathering and slowly turning into an old man's back. That back was familiar to Su Ming, and his eyes lit up with eagerness. He knew that it was fake, but if he could just see the elder even once, he would be satisfied. Your challenge has ended. You have failed. You are fortunate you didn't die. I suggest that you leave as soon as possible. If you insist on continuing, then you will be treated as challenging the might of Puqiang tribe. That delicate voice resounded once again. The voice had a velvety quality to it, but there was a hint of venom hidden within. The voice from Puqiang tribe made the entire Han Mountain city fall into silence. Almost everyone became quiet. In the face of one of the three masters of Han Mountain City, Puqiang, the visitors who came to this city had no power to resist their will. They were not the ones who set the rules. Even if they wanted to change it, they were not the ones in power to do so. Even if this was slightly against the original intention set for the chains of Han Mountain, Su Ming had failed once, even if that failure was not acknowledged by the chain itself and he had risen from the canyons. However, if Puqiang tribe used this as a reason, it was difficult for them to say anything about it, nor did they have the right to say anything about it. Perhaps Nan Tien had some right to do so, but he chose to remain silent. Ku Ju Sai hesitated for a moment before he sighed. He knew that he was in Han Mountain City and he was an outsider to Puqiang tribe. That was why he did not have any right to refute their decision. Leng Ying frowned, but he also stayed silent. Xian Lun stood in the air in the distance and loosened his clenched fist. Sadistic delight appeared in his eyes. He wanted Su Ming to refuse it, because if that was the case, then it meant he was going up against Puqiang. Xian Lun himself did not even need to do anything, and Su Ming would be destroyed. Everyone fell silent. Han Fei Zi lowered her head thinking about something. Lake of Colors Mountain and Tranquil East Mountain also fell silent when they heard that delicate voice from Puqiang Mountain. The world suddenly became silent. Even thunder did not ring out. Pairs of eyes from Han Mountain City became fixated on Su Ming. The owners of these gazes wanted to know what he would choose. However, they did not know that Su Ming did not have the time to be bothered by the delicate voice. His gaze was completely captured by the old man's back that appeared from the mist. He trembled. Tears fell once again from his eyes. He looked at the old man standing not too far away, turning around slowly to look at him. Su Ming's voice became hoarse. Elder. That old man was the elder of Dark Mountain tribe, Mo Sang. He was still wearing the same clothes as he did when Su Ming saw him last. When he saw Su Ming, a baffled look appeared on his face. There was also a hint of conflict as he looked at Su Ming with a dumbfounded expression, at the child he took care of since he was young. He looked like he was about to say something, but no sound came out. The bewilderment and conflict in his eyes were replaced by gentleness and love. There was even a hint of praise, as if he was very pleased with the current Su Ming. Very, very pleased. Su Ming looked at the elder and the tests that would not stop. No matter how much he grew, how much he learned to be indifferent, and how much he embraced solitude, no matter how many people he killed and how many things he went through, the moment he saw the elder, all of these vanished. He was still the carefree child that lived in Dark Mountain. He had Xiao Hong's companionship and the elder's love. He would wait for rain to come to collect Dark Dragon's saliva, would wait for the bonfire to burn in the tribe, and he would dance around the elder as he laughed happily. The sky then was very blue, the clouds were very white, but he could no longer recall them as clearly. Elder, I miss home. Su Ming moved forward. He wanted to get closer to look at his elder. Even if this was an illusion, he did not mind. The elder looked at Su Ming, and the gentleness in his eyes made Su Ming's heart tremble, and he could not help but see all the happy memories of his youth surfacing in his mind. When he got closer and stood before the elder formed from the mist, he cried even harder. He looked at the white-haired old man and the same clothes his elder wore in his memories. Su Ming looked at him and forced out a smile on his face. Elder, your lasso grew up. Look, I grew much taller. The elder smiled as he looked at Su Ming. Then he sighed softly, and the gentleness in his eyes was once again replaced by conflict. Within that conflict was a hint of compassion. A hint of profoundness that Su Ming could not understand. Eventually, Su Ming saw a hint of resolution and determination on the elder's face. He saw a strange glint suddenly appearing in the elder's eyes. That glint went into Su Ming's mind, making a boom resound in his head, as if his mind trembled. At the same moment, he clearly heard the voice that only existed in his memories. Su Ming, you. Su Ming shuddered, but the moment the voice began speaking, the elder's body suddenly trembled and abruptly dissipated before the words could even be clearly heard. That mist seemed to be blown apart by a strong force that came from behind it, causing everything before Su Ming's eyes to completely disappear. The mist disappeared, the elder disappeared, and even his voice turned into a faint lingering echo in his mind, causing Su Ming to be unable to hear it clearly. But all of this was not due to him missing a step, neither was it due to something going wrong with the chains of Han Mountain. All of this was due to the strong force charging towards him at that moment. The source of that strong force was a black bone ring. That bone ring whistled as it flew out from Puqiang Mountain and charged towards Su Ming. It was the thing that shook the chain, causing the illusions from the chain that were reflected in Su Ming's eyes to disappear. Su Ming's eyes immediately turned red. He had originally learned how to remain calm and not be reckless, but there were certain things that he could not tolerate, that he absolutely refused to take lying down. The elder was among these things. The incoming bone ring dissipated the mist that turned into the elder, scattering away the beautiful and happy memories of his youth that had appeared in his heart. This scene was like when he saw the gaze that appeared when Dark Mountain was eventually shattered by a giant hand when he was walking through the blood path leading to the isolation grounds of Han Mountain's ancestor. The bone ring and its owner broke the bottom line that Su Ming refused to let anyone stain, causing him to fall into madness. He let out a roar that had not come from his mouth for a very long time. It spread through the land swiftly and blended with the thunder that rang in the sky at that very moment. It was as if his anger was the sky's anger. As he roared, Su Ming lifted his head swiftly and the shadow of the blood moon appeared in his eyes. He looked at the bone ring closing in on him and took a huge step forward. His chi surged out of his body, and as it erupted forth with astonishing power, a large amount of moonlight rapidly descended upon him. The branding art also burst forth, causing green light to flash on the center of his brows, and the small virescent sword turned into a ray of green light that gathered all the power of his chi, the shadow of the blood moon, and the branding art. Then the green light flashed. Light illuminated the sky. There was no lightning, but at that moment, the world was illuminated by green light in an instant. Thunder rumbled, and the green light charged into the incoming bone ring. The instant it touched the ring, the light cut through the ring with one slash. There was a loud crash, and the world trembled. Tremors shook the land. Su Ming coughed out a mouthful of blood and staggered backwards, but each time his feet landed, they would fall precisely on the chain. The green light dissipated and tumbled backwards into Su Ming's body. The green light only appeared for an instant from its emergence to the moment it dissipated. No one managed to see what it actually was. Before Su Ming, the black bone ring remained unmoving. A thin crack appeared on its surface, and it abruptly shattered, splitting into half before it fell into the canyons. At that moment, the man who looked like a mountain of flesh trembled furiously and coughed out a huge mouthful of blood on Puqiang Mountain. His face instantly turned deathly pale, and the flesh on his body mysteriously shrank by a large portion. "How dare you? We've already warned you that if you continue, then you will be treated as provoking Puqiang tribe. This is your final chance. Turn back now. You have failed." The man who looked like a mountain of flesh yelled out with a weakened, venomous voice. "I refuse." Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corners of his mouth and glared at Puqiang Mountain coldly. At that moment, he had returned to being calm. "You refuse? What right do you have to refuse? You're just an outsider in Han Mountain. The 3 tribes make all decisions within Han Mountain. Within 3 breaths, if you don't leave, then don't think about leaving ever again." The one who spoke this time was not the man who looked like a mountain of flesh, but another old man who stood beside the elder of Puqiang tribe. That old man had an arrogant and wild look on his face, and his cold laughter carried contempt. The moment he spoke, the man who looked like a mountain of flesh immediately frowned. He looked as if he was about to say something, but did not voice his thoughts. As for the elder of Puqiang tribe, he remained silent, but the freezing look in his eyes revealed his thoughts. Su Ming fell silent. Some of the people in Han Mountain City had clenched their fists. They were also outsiders in Han Mountain. Even if they had lived in Han Mountain City for many years, the city belonged to the 3 tribes. As long as they were not from the three tribes, then they were all outsiders. They did indeed not have any right to refute, but gradually, more people's gazes turned cold as they looked at Puqiang tribe. Some sort of acknowledgement slowly arose within them towards Su Ming, because they were all outsiders. Nan Qian, Ku Ju Sai, and Leng Ying looked at Puqiang Mountain coldly when they heard those words, but they still chose to remain silent. Then do I have the right? We have reached the end of chapter 185. Su Ming is standing at a new threshold, where the mysteries of the past and the dangers of the future collide. Thank you for spending your time in the sanctuary at Panda AudioBooks. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give the video a like and share your theories in the comments. Your support is what keeps this channel thriving and allows us to bring more of Su Ming's legendary journey to life. Are you ready for what comes next? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next breakthrough. Until next time, keep your heart steady and your path true.